And don't come crawling back. The door slammed against her shoulder, nearly toppling her down the porch steps. Clara clutched the swaddled newborn tighter, her arms burning from the weight and from the effort of not falling. Dust spiraled off the ground as boots scuffed against the boards. The faces of her husband's kin were like stone, mouths drawn thin with disgust. The baby whimpered. Clara steadied her footing, bare toes curling against the warped wood. She looked once more into the house where her husband had been born, where he had died in a coffin only weeks earlier. The parlor curtains swayed in the hot wind, but the door shut hard in her face. The bolt scraped home. Silence, save for the creak of the porch and the rattling cry of her child. Clara adjusted the cloth about him, the linen damp with her sweat. She stepped down into the yard. The air pressed heavy, the kind that carried heat deep into the bones. Horses stamped behind the fence, tails swishing against flies, watching her with black, unblinking eyes. "Go on, widow," one of the brothers sneered from behind the door. "You and that brat ain't our problem." Clara walked. The dust swallowed her steps. Down the rutted road, the town crouched against the desert. Low roofs, hitching rails, the leaning steeple of the chapel. The sun glared on every window pane like a blade drawn across her vision. She lowered her head and kept moving. The child stirred, a small fist pushing against the cloth. Clara hushed him, the words catching in her throat. By the time she reached the main street, her legs trembled. Men on the saloon porch leaned forward, spitting tobacco, watching her pass. A woman with a basket turned her face away, crossing to the other side. The sheriff stood near the jailhouse door, hat low, arms folded. His eyes flickered toward her, then away again. He did not move. Clara slowed, only a moment, waiting, hoping. Nothing. She pulled the child closer and pressed forward. The road stretched on, straight as judgment. Heat shimmered over the dust. Her shadow dragged long behind her. Step, breath, cry. Step, breath, cry. Her body shook with the rhythm, her chest tight with thirst. At the edge of town, the road narrowed, winding toward the mesas. The chapel bell rang, tinny and far, calling the faithful, but none came to her aid. The land opened wide beyond the last fence. Dry sage scattered in clumps, their gray leaves whispering under the wind. Crows circled above, black flecks against a burning sky. Clara stumbled. Her knee struck a stone, scraping skin, but she held the baby high, refusing to let him touch the ground. She rose again, blood streaking down her shin. Her breath rasped. Sweat streaked her face. The child wailed louder, hungry, afraid. She whispered to him between gasps. "Hush now. Hush, little one." The wind answered, carrying grit into her mouth, her eyes. She walked until her legs betrayed her. At the rise of a hill, where a fence stretched crooked across the land, Clara's vision blurred. She clutched the post for balance. The wood was splintered, sun-bleached, warm as fire under her palm. Her arms quaked. She swayed. The baby's cry turned thin, desperate. Clara sank to her knees. The dust took her, rising in a cloud about her skirts. She bent low, shielding the child against her chest. The world tilted, dimming around the edges. She pressed a trembling kiss to the infant's forehead. "I'll not let them take you. Not ever." The heat closed over her. And then, footsteps, heavy, deliberate, crunching through gravel. A shadow spread across the dust. Broad shoulders blocked the sun. The creak of leather, the faint metallic jangle of spurs. Clara raised her eyes. A man stood above her, hat brim casting his face in darkness. The lines of his frame cut hard against the sky. His silence held weight, his stillness heavier still. The baby whimpered, and the man's gaze shifted downward. He knelt, the earth groaning beneath him, and his hand, calloused, scarred, hovered close, not yet touching. His voice came low, like gravel rolled in thunder. "You'll die out here, ma'am." Clara's lips parted, but no words came. Her throat burned too raw, too dry. The man looked at the child again. His jaw tightened. A pause, long as eternity, passed between them. Then he lifted her, light in his arms, though his grip was steady as iron, and carried her toward the homestead that rose against the horizon, a lone ranch house, its roof weathered, its windmill turning slow against the sky. Behind them, the road lay empty, save for the dust that whispered across it like the hush of forgotten prayers. The baby's cry cut through the dim cabin. Jedediah Cole set the lantern on the table, the flame trembling as if uneasy in its glass. His boots thudded across the planks. He carried Clara as though she weighed nothing, but his jaw was locked, his eyes shadowed under the brim of his hat. He laid her on a cot by the hearth. The blankets smelled of smoke and horse, but they were clean. Clara stirred, her lips cracked, her skin pale. She clutched at the child, even in her weakness, arms trembling, refusing to let go. Jedediah crouched, his voice a low rumble. "Water!" One of his ranch hands, a wiry man with a scar splitting his cheek, hesitated in the doorway. "You sure, boss?" "She's water," the man muttered, but he obeyed. Moments later, the tin cup shone wet in the lantern light. Jedediah held it steady while Clara tried to drink. The first swallow sent her coughing, the water spilling down her chin, but she drank again, desperate, until her strength returned enough for breath. The baby whimpered, rooting blindly against her chest. Jedediah looked away, the lines around his mouth tightening. His hand drifted to the scar across his neck, a pale reminder etched deep into the skin. Outside, coyotes yipped under the moon. The sound carried across the barren land, high and lonely. The ranch hands whisper by the door. "Bad luck, tuck her in. Widow's curse brings death to every man near." Jedediah's head lifted. The whispers stopped. He rose slow, turned, and his boots struck the floor with finality. "My house, my land, my say." His words carried the weight of a man who did not invite reply. The door shut, leaving only the crackle of the fire and the soft suckle of the infant. Clara's eyes opened wider now, blue as the desert sky before rain. She studied him with fear, with caution, with something more guarded than either. Her voice rasped, thin as thread. "What?" Jedediah leaned against the table, arms folded. The lantern light carved deep hollows into his face. He did not answer at once. His gaze moved over the cot, the child, the fragile woman clinging to him like a lifeline. At last he said, "Because land's no good if it don't keep something alive." The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Clara lowered her head, the words catching in her chest. She rocked her child, the baby's fist clutching at her dress, small and insistent. The silence stretched until morning. When dawn split the horizon, Jedediah led her outside. The world lay wide and raw, red buttes rising sharp against the sky, sage bending under the wind, the smell of dust and horse sweat filling the air. The windmill turned, squealing on its axle. Clara shielded her eyes, the child wrapped close. The ranch hands watched from the corral, their murmurs traveling on the wind. Jedediah pointed to a stretch of earth beyond the fence line, a small rise, with a creek trickling nearby, mesquite dotting the ground. "That's yours," he said. Clara blinked, sure she had misheard. "You'll raise him there," Jedediah continued. His voice was steady, hard as stone. "So long as you've got strength to work, that land'll be yours." The words hung in the dry morning air. Clara's knees weakened. She looked from the rancher to the land and back again. A gift, unasked for, unearned, yet carved with the weight of finality. Her lips parted, but the words failed her. She only bowed her head, clutching the child tighter, tears burning but not falling. Jedediah's eyes lingered on her a moment longer, then he turned. His spurs clinked as he strode toward the corral. Behind him, Clara's breath came fast and unsteady. The child stirred against her chest. That night, the wind rattled the shutters. Clara lay awake in the cot, the baby pressed against her heart. Through the thin wall, she heard Jedediah's boots pacing the floor. The boards creaked under his weight. He muttered, low, broken words meant for no ears but his own. The lantern burned late. In town, the talk had already begun. At the saloon, men shook their heads over whiskey. Jed Cole's taken a widow with a brat. Gave her land, too. Ain't right. The sheriff leaned on the bar, jaw tight, saying nothing. At dusk the following day, 3 riders appeared at the ranch fence. Clara recognized them before they dismounted. Her husband's kin, faces hard with triumph. The eldest brother spit in the dirt. "She don't belong here. That babe's Hensley blood, and he's ours. You're harboring what ain't yours, Cole." Jedediah stood in the doorway, rifle in hand, the barrel glinting in the sunset. "Best turn around," he said. The men scowled, muttered threats, but when Jedediah stepped forward, broad as the doorframe, eyes flat as the desert, they swung into their saddles. As they rode off, dust trailing, one voice carried back on the wind, "This ain't over. We'll be back, and not alone." Clara stood inside. Child clutched her breast, heart hammering so hard she could hear it. She pressed her back to the wall and listened to the echo of hooves fade into the dusk. When she dared to look again, Jedediah was still in the doorway, rifle across his arms. He did not move. The last light of day bled out across the sky, red as spilled blood. The hammer clicked back. Clara's hands shook as the pistol weighed heavy in her grip. The tin can on the fence post wavered in her vision, sun glare flashing off its side. Sweat slid down her temple. The baby's faint cry drifted from the house, but Jedediah's voice cut through it all. Low, steady, unyielding. "Breathe first, then squeeze." The shot cracked across the land. The can spun off the post, rattling into the dust. Clara's shoulders jerked, her ears rang. Jedediah lowered his chin once, approval without a word. She stared at the smoking pistol in her hand, her chest heaving. The recoil had stung her arm, but a heat rose in her chest that was not fear. Day after day, the lessons repeated. Clara's skirts whipped in the wind as she rode the gray mare across the pasture. Jedediah's deep voice calling commands behind her. She fell, rose again, dirt clinging to her palms. She fired at fence posts, at bottles, at shadows cast by the dusk. Each miss carved frustration into her face. Each hit hardened her jaw. At night, when the baby nursed by firelight, she whispered to him, "We'll be safe. Mom'll see to it." Jedediah sat in his chair, hat brim low, silent except for the rasp of his whetstone on steel. Sparks flicked from the knife's edge. His silence was a wall, but Clara felt him watching, weighing, deciding. One night, when the coyotes cried close and the wind moaned across the rafters, Jedediah spoke. His voice was gravel, pulled from a deep place. "Name you heard in town, Cole the Butcher." He paused, eyes locked on the fire. "That was me." Clara froze, the child against her shoulder. "They took my wife, my boys, outlaws. I tracked him, every last one, and I killed him, all." His hand dragged over the scar at his neck. "Swore I'd never raise iron again, not till you showed up on my fence line." The fire popped. Shadows stretched across the walls like reaching hands. Clara's throat tightened, but no words came. Only the baby's small sigh filled the silence. Days bled into nights. Whispers in town thickened like storm clouds. The Hensleys had hired guns. They were coming. The tension pressed down on the ranch. Horses snorted restless in the corral. The ranch hands eyed the horizon, muttering of leaving before the shooting started. Clara stitched a tear in the baby's blanket with trembling fingers, her ears tuned to every hoofbeat, every howl. Then one evening they came. A cloud of dust rose on the horizon, rolling nearer, sun catching on rifles across saddles. Clara stood at the porch, pistol at her side, heart pounding hard enough she thought the boards would rattle with it. Jedediah stepped out beside her, his rifle already in hand. His face was carved in stone. "They're here." The riders crested the hill, her husband's kin at the front, flanked by hard-eyed strangers with bandoliers slung across their chests. Horses pawed the earth, restless, their riders' silhouettes black against the sinking sun. Clara gripped the pistol tighter. Her breath hissed through her teeth. The eldest Hensley brother called out, voice sharp as a whip. "Cole, you can hand the boy over easy, or we'll take him and land with him." The baby cried inside the house, the wail slicing through the standoff. Jedediah's voice was steady. ain't yours to take. The riders shifted, rifles lifting. Dust swirled under hooves. Clara's knuckles whitened around her pistol. Every lesson, every fall, every bruise ran through her like fire in her veins. She stepped forward, her skirts whipping in the wind, and raised the gun level at the man who had cast her into the dust. Her voice shook, but the words cut clean. You'll not have him. Not while I breathe. The men laughed, the sound hollow, but the laughter died when they saw her stance. Jedediah glanced at her, a flicker of something, respect, or maybe sorrow, passing in his eyes. He shifted the rifle in his hands, set his boots firm in the earth. The sky darkened, red and gold bleeding into shadow. The wind carried the smell of gunpowder before the first shot had even been fired. The storyteller's voice wove itself through the moment, thin as the wind's whisper. They say the desert holds no mercy. But that night, mercy was not asked for. Only blood, only dust. The riders edged forward, weapons glinting. Clara's finger tightened on the trigger. The world held its breath. The first shot split the dawn. Wood shattered from the porch beam above Clara's head. She flinched but did not fall. Smoke curled from the rider's rifle, still lifting as the echo rolled across the valley. Jedediah fired back. One man dropped from his saddle, dust exploding around him. Horses screamed, hooves tearing the ground. Clara raised her pistol. The weight no longer dragged her hand. It steadied her. She fired. A rider jerked sideways, his hat spinning into the dirt. The crack rang sharp in her ears, but her stance held. Bullets tore through the fence rails. Splinters stung her cheek. The baby's cry wailed from inside the house, piercing, desperate. Clara's chest tightened, but her eyes stayed on the enemy. Jedediah moved like the old ghosts whispered about. Calm, ruthless, each shot placed with certainty. He dropped two more before a bullet slammed into his side. He staggered, teeth clenched but stayed upright. Clara gasped, reaching toward him, but his voice lashed through the chaos. Hold your ground. The Hensleys pressed closer, their hired guns circling wide. Shadows shifted through the smoke. Clara caught a flash of her husband's eldest brother, face twisted, eyes burning with greed. His rifle leveled at her. She fired first. The bullet struck his shoulder, spinning him back. He howled, clutching the wound. Rage twisted his face. You'll die for that, whore. Gunfire thundered. Dust choked the air, the acrid stench of powder thick in every breath. Clara's ears rang, her body trembling with the rhythm of firing, reloading, firing again. Each shot pushed her back, yet she held steady, her jaw set like stone. Jedediah stumbled, knees buckling as another bullet struck his leg. He dropped to one hand, blood soaking his trousers, but his rifle still barked fire. His face was pale, sweat streaking through the grime, but his eyes, unyielding. Clara crouched beside him between volleys, her hand gripping his arm. Stay with me. His gaze locked on hers, fierce even through the pain. You fight now, Clara. You finish this. The riders regrouped for one last charge. Their shouts rose above the storm, boots slamming against stirrups, rifles raised. Clara stood, pistol firm in both hands. Her heart pounded against her ribs, but her feet rooted deep in the dust. The wind caught her skirts, snapping them around her legs. The sun broke fully over the buttes, blinding light flooding the valley. The Hensleys came. She fired into their midst, one after another, each shot fueled by every insult, every shove into the dirt, every door slammed in her face. One man toppled, another reeled back, their charge breaking under her fury. Her husband's brother spurred forward, eyes fixed on her. He raised his rifle, teeth bared. Clara's pistol bucked. The bullet struck clean through his chest. He fell from his saddle, hitting the ground with a dull finality. Silence rippled across the field. The surviving riders wheeled back, spurred hard, dust trailing like smoke as they fled into the horizon. The gunfire faded. Only the baby's cries and the ragged wind remained. Clara lowered the pistol slowly, smoke curling from its barrel. Her arms trembled, her breath ragged, but her stance did not break. She turned. Jedediah lay slumped against the wall of the house, blood pooling beneath him. His rifle rested limp across his lap. Clara dropped beside him, hands pressing against the wounds, tears blurring her vision. "Don't you leave us. Please don't." Jedediah's lips curved faintly, a ghost of a smile beneath the shadow of his hat. His voice rasped, faint as dying embers. "Not a widow no more. You're a rancher now." His eyes closed, his chest stilled. The windmill creaked overhead, turning slow against the sky. Clara bowed her head against his chest, her tears soaking the dust. The baby's cry softened, as though the child knew. She gathered him in one arm, the pistol in the other, and stood beneath the rising sun. She looked across the land Jedediah had given her, the creek, the mesquite, the scarred earth that was now hers. She stood taller, the weight of grief and resolve welded into steel. Later, she rode into town. Dust cloaked her skirts, her face streaked with dirt and blood. The baby slept against her shoulder, his tiny breaths warm against her neck. The townsfolk turned, whispers rising, eyes wide at the sight of her. Clara dismounted before the sheriff's office, Jedediah's will in her hand, the pistol still at her hip. The sheriff met her eyes. Whatever he meant to say died in his throat. He removed his hat, bowing his head. Clara stepped forward, every board of the walkway groaning beneath her boots. The people parted, silent as she passed. The old storyteller's voice carried with the wind. They still whisper it when the dust storms roll across the buttes, of the widow who took up iron, who faced down blood and fire, and who stood when no man would. Some say her shadow still rides the land, rifle in hand, a reminder that mercy can be carved from stone and justice written in lead. The wind swept the street, lifting dust into the air. It shimmered gold under the sun, as though the desert itself remembered.